Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Partner and Chief Project Officer with Berkshire Consulting LLC, Jen Schiller. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much, Karen. I really enjoy your invitation to join you today, and I'm really excited for our dialogue.
And it's been a couple years that we've known each other.
Yes.
I feel like you are someone who I've known forever, even though we've really only had a couple of conversations. So today will probably be the longest conversation that we've ever had.
Yeah, I'm so glad our paths have crossed.
I am too. And I would love for our viewers and our listeners to know how that took place. You were a guest of Joe Paz's, it was before the pandemic.
Yes.
2019.
It was 2019, yeah.
Yeah. And were you still in Wisconsin?
Yes, I was at that time.
Okay, tell us how this all came to be. And then, of course, we just absorbed you and kept you here in Arizona.
That's true. I had the pleasure of crossing paths with Joe virtually when I joined in a 3-day project management conference that was virtual at the time. And afterwards, I used the power of LinkedIn to really connect with the people that presented that really resonated with me. And Joe was one of them. So we connected. And I was pleased to be invited to a show where I was joined with another gentleman in a project management position from, I believe, a copper mining industry at the time, which was a great dynamic. And I learned so much. And I was speaking about how to establish and maintain scope for a project management office. And finally, I had the opportunity to meet Joe in person when Berkshire Consulting sponsored the last project management summit that was held at Arizona State University and hosted by the two PMI chapters, the local chapters here for Phoenix and Tucson. And I had the opportunity to meet him in person finally.
And that was just recently.
Yeah, it was. It was maybe 2 weeks ago.
And from 2020, having met each other, at least online, remotely, being a guest on the show to all these years later, now living in the Metro Phoenix area.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really fabulous.
Yes. And Joe's no longer doing his podcast with us. However, he remains the legend.
It's the first and I think still the only radio broadcast that specialized in project management office.
Yeah.
Project management office hours was a great name.
And it really was. Project management office hours still out there on all the major platforms. And I know Joe continues to be a leader and a magnet when it comes to project management internationally, which is really fantastic. So I'm so glad that he is famous. Joe, PMO Joe, right?
Joe, yeah.
Well, I love it. So, and you and I have had an opportunity to stay connected a little bit on LinkedIn, and then through some charitable opportunities as well. I would love, though, for not only for my interests, but for our viewers and our listeners, for you to really give us everything that you can today around why project management for you, and then why showing up as a consultant in the way that you do. So what's the backstory, Jan? How did you fall into project management? And then, of course, having this company.
I fell into project management when I was in my 8th grade English class. Believe it or not, I had a flash of career insight. Don't ask me why. I think it's through osmosis, through my father's work. He led a team in a paper-making industry, and they developed the shiny coatings that you see on, great magazines. So he would take me to bring your kids to work day, give us a tour of a paper making industry. And part of his process was to test the glass coating on the paper as it was running through, before it's cut. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to tour an industry like that, but it is so equipment intensive, right?
Yeah.
So I was super impressed. The machines are like 2 stories tall and run at amazing speeds. And I think that's how I got the interest. And it turns out my neighbor, one of my best friends, her father was the CIO at the same company. So I'm guessing that's why 8th grade was so important to me. But it sure made choosing a college a lot more easier. It's like shopping for something to wear on your feet. And I want green high-heeled pumps, right? It helped me focus so much.
Yep.
Then I chose management information systems degree at a Wisconsin University at Eau Claire. And I think the enthusiasm that the instructors brought, 2 of them were actually out in industry they're actually doing their jobs in industry and then also teaching at the university. Like, for example, the team that was formed in my database class, it was one of the hardest and most enjoyable classes I've ever had. And that really got me kind of hooked. So the management information systems degree was more comprehensive, and it's kind of like combining computer science and business administration all in one major.
And that's kind of a niche, right? I mean, are there a lot of people out there with that combo doing what you're doing the way you're doing it?
Oh, I'm sure there are. I know that comprehensive major, they didn't continue that at some point since I graduated, eons ago, with regards to that particular approach with management information systems, but I'm sure other universities have that. And I think the path that project management takes, when I started, there really was no such thing as even a project management class. And now you can get master's degrees in project management from prestigious universities like George Washington University. I was invited to teach at Boston University. So there's many more opportunities for that kind of formal education, as well as all the educational opportunities that are out there in terms of conferences or webinars or, in-class training still.
What is the value that a project manager, either a project manager or the project management mindset and approach to business? What's the benefit? And I'm really thinking of, I mean, I know because I produced many
Yes.
of Joe's shows and we've gotten to know each other quite well. But for our viewers and listeners who really may not have a grasp on what it is to be involved in project management, what would you just say to somebody if they were first time curious?
I think everyone does a project. I mean, I've talked at some panel discussions and used the example of going to a grocery store. I mean, why do you go to a grocery store? Well, you want to have a fantastic meal with someone. Maybe it's your family or your friends, or it's a business function. But when you think about how you go about that, first you decide the result, right? What kind of meal am I having? What's the menu? And then you can back into, well, if I need to go shopping, I need these ingredients that will deliver the menu that everyone can sit down and enjoy this fabulous meal. But then you have to determine the path you're going to take, right? Where do you live? Even if you live close to a grocery store and can walk to it, you might not want to carry all those groceries back in the same fashion. So do you have a car? How long will it take you to get there? Do you get your frozen foods last or first? Depending on how far away you are. So there's many different examples. I think when you worked with Joe, you were managing a project about how to, make him and your show at Business RadioX so successful. The value that we deliver to our clients is about as varied as there are organizations and the strategies that they have, right? So Berkshire Consulting really specializes in delighting our clients because we transform their strategies from a nice strategy map that sits on an office QB wall into an actual result. That's really where the rubber meets the road, and that's where they get their ROI and they achieve basically their desired outcome. So even though it's also varied in terms of the industries and the types of roles we have or the projects, it kind of follows the same kind of pattern, right? So like a key stakeholder, let's say it's a project sponsor or a project team member or anyone, observes that, there might be some struggles going on with trying to achieve their desired objective, whatever that is. And they are concerned that a project's poor performance may not bode well for their organization. So they give us a call, a company that's been down many solution delivery paths over the last quarter century. And we are a company that understands their situation. And we talk to them about how we reveal the path from where they are to where they want to be. So it varies, right? Depending on what the organization is and what they're looking to accomplish. And then they decide to engage with us, right? We talk about how we set up key milestones on that path so they can tell if they're making the critical progress they need to make. We help them know how to recover from deviations from that path because projects don't always go exactly according to plan. We talk about how we help them transparently and consistently and confidently communicate all their schedule and budget information in a timely manner. And basically, we bring together like project management along with that path, a solution delivery path. What do we need to do in order to get you where you want to go? We manage that to ensure that their outcome is realized in the way they envisioned it at the beginning of the project. And so we kind of help them, transform this result that could have been maybe a disappointment or even a failure into something that meets or exceeds expectations. And, they get what they want. Their desired outcome is achieved and the ship is righted and everyone's happy.
The other thing I'm thinking about as you close up that example is that even if a project ends Well, when someone succeeds, let me back up. When someone or a company succeeds, if they don't really know how they landed there, they
Right.
don't have those milestones and the data to show and to prove this is why this worked, then it's guesswork and
Yeah.
likely not duplicatable. So how often are the teams that you work with like, oh my gosh, let's do this again?
Oh, mostly all the time. I mean, I think it's common in the consulting world, but especially in our experiences, um, we judge our success by how often we hear the word wow, and which is quite often, and it's a consistent sign that we're delighting our clients. And we kind of call it our wow factor. But instead of letting us go right away, consultants aren't necessarily have the job security that employees might, in terms of, someone can come to me tomorrow, a client or a sponsor can say, you know what, our engagement's over. Right. But instead they ask us to continue. Sometimes we've been at clients for 3-4 years, sometimes 7, because they see the confidence and the credibility that we have in our first assignment, maybe when we were even unknown to them. But then it becomes kind of apparent, even if they aren't necessarily familiar with project management. And most organizations are. We do a fair amount of education on what it is and isn't when we're engaged. But it's such a pleasure that's the direct relationship between, like, say, the performance of myself and our employees, because you get that immediate feedback on whether you're performing well or not. And because you can be let go the next day, it's a great feeling, at least for me, to know that they loved it so much that they're going to ask me to do it again in a different scenario, even internally in the own organization. So I love to learn, and this is like the most fantastic profession I can think of to always be learning.
And how long have you been a consultant with this company? And prior to that, you mentioned that you had an opportunity to be a professor, but what else has taken place from 8th grade until
Oh.
today, right?
So I did graduate from college, and I I think what I did is I just took the basic offerings from the placement office. So if I had to say what is one of my biggest regrets in my whole career, is there's a whole wide world out there, right? And not everything is represented through the placement office at a college, but that's the uh, approach I took. And I landed at a Fortune 500 insurance company in Milwaukee. And I was glad because some of my friends were there. So it's always easier to assimilate into a new city, even though it's not that big. And that's where I landed. And I lasted 14 years and I did a lot of cool things. I've held about every single position on a solution delivery path, in addition to being a project manager. I was really, really lucky because when I landed, it's a random assignment of a new hire to a manager, and I was in their IT department. And my first manager had the insights to, like, see my strengths, right? Instead of focusing on making an improvement opportunity into a strength, he really just tried to maximize what I did well. He gave me my personal tagline. I put structure and ambiguity, showed up on one of my early performance reviews.
And you've stuck with it ever since.
I've stuck with it ever since because it was so rewarding. And 3 years after I started, I was managing my first project. That was 7 phases over 4 years, and I
Wow.
just learned so much. So that's how I got started. How I made the shift from, like, that, it was at the time brick and mortar, pretty traditional employment model
Sure.
at that major insurer. And then this is a fun story. About in 1999, I was directing a project management office, and that's kind of like my interest, where I tuned into Joe on that project management office conference. But I hired a woman into our organization, into the project management office that I was directing, because we offered mentor services. We sit down at the elbow, like you, Karen, could take training on how to best use Microsoft Project, but then you have to apply it in your job. So we would focus on helping the person that just had the training successfully apply it at their particular situation, because it's all kind of different. So I hired her in, and after about 6 months, she goes, "Hey, let's go to lunch." And I said, "Sure." It turns out that she talked about her daughter's new company called Berkshire Consulting, and now
No,
her daughter is my business partner. And we're
that's
about 2
incredible.
months apart. She's older than I am. Hi, Robin. And it's just at one time we had 4 business partners, and then for various reasons, retirement, family commitments, we're back down to 2. But I've never worked so well with someone so seamlessly. Do you know what I mean? It's almost
Yeah.
like an effortless partnership. We have the same approach to life. I learned from her. She's got her master's in finance, so she's like our chief finance officer, and I have no aptitude for that, so it's a great fit.
What a great fit. And it's been how long? 20 years?
1999 I joined. And I've been having fun ever since.
And Robin is in Wisconsin?
Yeah, she's still in Wisconsin. Our headquarters is Port Washington,
Yeah.
which is north of Milwaukee.
And what brought you to Arizona besides our great weather?
I've always wanted, the great weather, but I love the geography. I've always had an interest in coming here. Like for whatever reason, when I fly over or land in Phoenix to get to my client, wherever they're at, I'm always happy here. And then I have 2 children and they launched, right? My daughter graduated from graduate school as a vet, and my son achieved his CPA in the first attempt on all 4 of those really tough exams. And I thought, this is the perfect time now. I mean, I've always wanted to kind of come out here. I have really good friends here. And that, like I said, helps whenever you come to a new community, and they were wonderful and supportive. And again, it's like a honeymoon. I still go back to Wisconsin. My family and friends are still there, but it's really fabulous.
And so your clientele is all over the country, or is it international? Tell us about kind of the scope of the types of companies that you work with.
We do, we support domestic national business only. We're not set up from an insurance perspective to do international business, and it really hasn't been our dream.
Yeah.
We've always kind of intended to be under 20 people. Okay. We're kind of like a micro business, not even a small business, I would say. We've been hugely successful, but we want to keep it under 20 because we kind of want to keep, our model is really based on these 3 founding partners, Robin included. They really wanted to take the best things that they had when they were all working at this large global accounting company and set up a business model that was focused on delivering the most value by reducing overhead as much as possible. So one of the features of that is we're virtual. And that's really helped us even since inception, right? We're really good at working remotely because we've been doing it the whole career. But some of the things as it relates to where we're capable of doing business is in light of doing the low overhead, we also try and keep like our insurance is low, and setting up to do international business is another whole leap. And keeping us under 20 was designed to keep our compliance efforts commensurate with the size of the business, right? When you get over 2025, then you have different things you need to do with a lot more effort to comply with things like SOX or HIPAA or benefit administration. So we've been pretty happy in that micro space for the last 25 years.
And the rest of the world caught up with you, or the rest of the US caught up with you when it was COVID, and we had no choice but to go remote. Yeah. And you were already well positioned, and that's what you'd been doing for a very long time.
Yeah, and Arizona is also attractive from a business perspective. We gave it some careful consideration, and a lot of help from the Greater Phoenix Economic Council was really helpful. And we just noticed that such a vibrant business community, leading edge thinking with regards to smart cities, digital inclusion and equity, fantastic universities. You mentioned the climate and the geography, all of that came together, and we were just looking forward to getting so more like deeply connected and involved in that kind of vibrant business community and giving back to the Greater Phoenix area.
That's done that. Yeah. We had a chance to see each other at least for a year through our 100 Businesses That Care Greater Phoenix area. What other either professional organizations are you involved in, or even philanthropic work? Is there anything that has your attention right now beyond what you're already doing for your clientele?
The philanthropic work is really in the form of sponsorships. We were the longest continuous sponsor of the PMI chapter in the Milwaukee area, as long as until COVID hit, and then they stopped doing a whole bunch of things, obviously. But that's really how we best support the project management community and the project managers in it, is sponsor these events that are designed to further their education and help them feel more confident in the careers that they've chosen. And that's why we chose to sponsor that PM Summit here. And now I'm interested in everything that the local chapter of PMI has to offer here. Yeah. It's a great organization, and it really does offer. Yes. Yeah. In terms of just general interests, that's what we look for. And one of my favorite roles is to work as a mentor. Even if I'm formally in the role of a project manager or program manager, whatever, I love working with the project team, bringing them together, getting everyone focused on the same, target, because projects go so much easier when everyone's arrows are like pointed at the same target.
What are the keys to a successful project? When you know that you're going for the wow,
Yeah.
and somebody's brand new, how are you guiding that leadership team to better understand what are the keys to it? Like part of it is people, right? I mean, to your point, you've got to have people all on the same page, marching in the same direction.
Yes.
What else are important aspects of project
People and
management?
communication are probably the most important things. I once worked at an organization back in the mid 2000s, and I got asked a question by the to-be project sponsor that I found really revealing. It was, how are you going to earn my confidence? Because I hadn't met him before, I hadn't known him before, I'm new to the organization. And my response was, I'm going to communicate with you, and you're going to have to give me the high sign, right? The first 3 weeks, you'll probably get a whole lot of questions from me. If I'm still asking questions a lot after 3 weeks, you'll know I'm maybe not getting it yet. But after the 4th week, it's just that consistent, open, honest, timely communication is one of the key factors that I almost like demand of any project team that I have. No surprises. If you don't feel comfortable telling me issues, especially, right? The surprises that come up, how you're going to navigate any deviations from where you wanted to go, whether that's prompted internally by the organization sponsors or market changes or industry changes. That is, to me, the key success factor that I've had my entire project management career. And the other one is simply to work the plan to the best of your ability.
Oh, imagine.
Imagine that. So working with leadership, the greatest compliment I got was I was working at a major insurer and their investment team, and we're doing some work with derivative management and achieving their objectives there. Talk about learning a lot. But I was so impressed with everyone. But we had the opportunity to work through a platform change. Basically, we did a process improvement that sounded really easy when I say it. It's switching the order of 2 key systems in order to decrease the amount of time they had in half to change out their outsourced investment traders. And we did it, and we stayed together long enough for the next 2 projects to prove that we actually achieved the outcome of cutting the time in half to make that change for the organization.
In half, was that the goal? Was that the milestone?
Yep, that was the milestone.
And you achieved it.
Yeah, and one of the project sponsors said, "Oh, you're like my general on the ground." You know what I mean? It's he trusted me that I would always be open, honest, and consistent in my communication, very transparent, very visible. And it's great when everyone takes accountability for their contributions to a project. And some people don't like that, but that's another success from my perspective is I'm going to hold myself accountable for my role and what I'm designed to do. But I'm also going to hold other people accountable for their contributions to the same desired outcome.
Project sponsors. Can you define that for us, for those of us that are not in the project management world? What or who is a project sponsor?
A project sponsor is someone who pays for the project usually.
Okay.
It could be also, it just depends on the organization structure. If projects automatically report to the finance area of the organization, they got that sealed up. But it could be someone that simply wants whatever the desired outcome of the organization is. So just to give you some examples of what that is, it could be someone that's responsible for new product development or implementation or introduction.
Mhm.
We help in that capacity. We help improve a process, like I mentioned before. We help improve productivity. We could be a lot of clients obviously are interested in delivering the best digital experience to their customers. We help with that. We help with regulatory compliance. We help migrate custom developed applications into an industry standard platform, say for e-commerce or learning management. We've worked at major breweries and had a long-standing relationship with one. I've helped out
Such a
life sciences
variety.
that's the thrill for me. I think for the other employees in our organization is we kind of focus on empowering our employees. That's, to me, our biggest success, not only keeping the overhead low so that we're delivering the most value, but when we empower our employees and we focus on their well-being, 3 really important things come out of our business model that way. One is that they choose their client just as much as the client chooses them. That's a huge win-win. No one is mandating at Berkshire Consulting that, Karen, you shall go to Pennsylvania and work for this client. It's a choice.
Yeah.
They retain nearly all of their income because of our low overhead model, and they are have all the flexibility they need and want in order to achieve whatever their work-life balance is. Some people want to work like mad till they retire. Some people want to take some time off and spend their time with their kids during the summer when they're not in school. Whatever that looks like to our employees is what we're focused on.
And it varies, obviously, for the
Yes.
different personalities and the different work commitment as far as, where they are in their stage in life.
Exactly.
And how big is your team right now?
Right now we're 4.
Yes. Incredible.
A retirement is set in.
Really?
Yeah, but the cool thing about consulting for me is we can do it for however long we want, however long we're adding value, however
Yeah.
long we're capable of applying our now massive skills and experience to the best benefit of helping the client get where they want to go.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it enough that I'll keep working past my traditional retirement age,
And as a mentor, what are some of the things that you find consistently you're saying to people when they're asking for guidance? I know that's a very broad question, but as it relates to being a professional, communication, I'm already hearing communication is key.
Yeah, communication is key. Role playing is key, right? To give people the actual confidence, like when they're speaking to a stakeholder, usually an executive, that they can communicate briefly, brilliantly, and then be gone unless there's questions, right? How do you scale your communication to the audience, especially executives for new project managers? They don't want to know how you're doing things, really. They just want to know the key facts about the project. So I go in with a standard agenda. It's called a project status report. I'm going to tell you, you started here, we're here. This is how far we have left to go to what we agreed you want to achieve. And then it's always the same agenda unless there's, the surprises, the issues, the realized risks, things like that that need to be managed, requested project changes. But it's really all they want to know is if you're not going according to plan, why? You have to be prepared to answer the why questions. And I find a lot of mentoring is about, excuse me, actually helping that person be able to answer the why question and the when question. And they have to have a tool that supports them in that. A lot of projects are, unless they're more than 2 or 3 weeks long, are pretty complex, and it's not everything you can keep in your head. That one project I mentioned when I helped change out cut the time in half for changing out their outsourced investors, it was like over 100 people on my team. And we were working with the buying organization as well as 9 other organizations to all end on the same date. So, one person can't make it, one organization doesn't quite meet it. You got to kind of start over again and pick a new date that everyone can meet. So those 2 questions are being able to sit down with someone and say, I have the presence to not cave when they're like, hey, how come we're not on track? Right. And some people can be very assertive that way, is to remain a calm, just the facts kind of presence and say, this is where we're at. This is what's happened. This is why things have changed. What is the impact of whatever happened that got you off your path? How are you going to bring it back?
So having a tool in place obviously is critical, especially the larger the project. Also being able to articulate where you're at and where you're going and why you are where you're at. That role playing really matters. And I would imagine that's very different than what a lot of people might do in mentoring. I mean, I'm going to tell you, but not necessarily show you.
Right.
But I hear you saying, I'm going to help you understand why this is important. I'm going to show you. And then I also want to hear how you're doing it so I can give you some feedback.
Yeah. When I mentor, I think my overall goal, no matter what, is to really share my experience and knowledge in a way that inspires their wisdom and their confidence. And that's almost exactly the opposite of telling them what they need to do.
Right.
It's really kind of guiding them so that they can apply their own best thinking, right? And get in the habit of doing that in a project management context. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. The 2 years that you've been here in Arizona, what has surprised you about our business community? You mentioned some highlights, but are there any surprises? I remember Joe, it was on my show when I just first opened the studio almost 7 years ago, and he himself was brand new to Arizona. We were riding up an elevator. We just finished a networking event. I'm like, hey, you sound like an interesting guy. Want to come and be on my show? He's like, sure. And then 6 years later or 5 years later, we got to see him a couple of times a month. I remember him saying there were a few surprises, having hailed from Atlanta and before that, New York.
Okay.
How about for you? Anything that surprises you and delights you or surprises you and has you going,
I don't think there's any moments yet. I am really surprised coming from Wisconsin. It's a different industry base. When I came here, I was really impressed with largely what I would say infrastructure work. What the physical things you need to do to deliver the internet to people in remote areas here. I was really impressed by the manufacturing here, the focus on semiconductors. That was something that I wasn't even aware of, right? Arizona's great. It's got a great climate. And then we moved down here and it's great to understand like what are the key things that really Arizona wants to focus on to be their best self. So I haven't had any moments. It's just been a lot of fun learning a new community. It's very dynamic. And when I say vibrant, there's so much going on that I'm glad I subscribe to. I think it's the Arizona Commerce Authority. It puts out a newsletter. Here's the top 5 things you should be focused on. I read that with a lot of interest, right?
Yep.
It seems like Arizona knows where they want to be and is making great progress to get there.
We've had a lot of clarity in the 6 or 7 years that, again, I've been a direct benefactor of our business community and a contributor to. When I first opened the studio, we had one of our shows, the conversation was really around who is Arizona as it relates to business and how do we want to, what do we want our stamp to be? Like, what do we want to stand by? And there was a lot of question. And as people came on that show, there were a lot of different perspectives as to who we should be. We don't want to be the next Silicon Valley. We don't want to be this. We don't want to be that. We have this Wild West and this kind of this freedom to be who we are. And then, like Sky Harbor Airport says, we are the friendliest airport. We believe that we're the friendliest business community as well.
I agree with that.
We are. And we do business differently. And one of the things, and I hope I'm quoting Joe correctly, but I'm paraphrasing, of course. One of the surprising things for him is like, we just do business differently. It is let's get to know each other.
Yeah.
Let's have coffee. The friend before you became a partner and said, hey, let's go to coffee. And now the next thing is you're going to be her daughter's business partner. That's how we do business, right? We're golfing together. We're having dinner together. We're going to some sort of sporting event together. And in that community building, deals are made and partnerships are formed. And I know that felt a little different. It wasn't as formal as what Joe remembered. So Joe, I know you're going to be listening, so go ahead and correct me. Send me an email or a text and let me know if I got that wrong. But we're very proud of who we are. And I agree with you. I've witnessed in the last several years that we as a greater Phoenix business community, and that includes higher ed, small and medium-sized business, enterprise, and local first, and Arizona Commerce Authority and Arizona Tech Council and the Greater Phoenix Economic Development Council, all of it. We're just this beautiful melting pot that we look across each other and say, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Competition is good. And how can I best support your success? Because when you win, we all win.
Exactly. That's what makes managing projects here such a delight.
Yeah.
It's very enjoyable.
And I would imagine when you are managing projects, there's a lot of cross discipline, right? A lot of different groups within a company having to be part of it. So you've got to make sure that the communication is key.
Yeah.
And that one project you mentioned, there were 9 other businesses or vendors involved.
Yeah. It's a lot to get to know, right?
A lot to get to know. And what was the duration of that? Again, a couple of years?
It was almost 1 year to deliver the platform, the base solution.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it was 54 days and 52 days. The goal was under 60 to get the next 2 projects delivered. The thrilling thing about that for me, especially as a consultant, is I was in at the beginning of the project to get started to deliver the base solution. I had the pleasure of seeing how what we all talked about actually showed up at the release to the customers. But then the entire team was able to stay together. And I think that's so powerful when an organization realizes the power of the team and how well they gel together to keep them together, so that you leverage all that investment that you made in the team in the beginning to actually go through and do what we said we were going to do. And so often I don't have the pleasure of sticking with a project long enough to see if what I was talking about at the beginning, especially at ideation or business justification, how that actually turns out. And
it's nice when you can.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and why is it that you sometimes don't do that? Because then it becomes an internal project, or speak to that a little bit. How does it happen that wouldn't always be the case?
It's always usually an internal project owned by the buying organization. So as a consultant, we're aligning with their culture and their experience, their project environment, their governance standards. I think it just has to do largely with funding. What is their budget?
Yeah.
are they looking at the overall investment that project management brings and adding value to their organization, or am I just an expense? And,
Yeah.
pretty soon after 3 months, they want to minimize their expenses. A lot of times I transition internally to a project manager, whether that's a junior project manager that I've been working with as part of the engagement, or they hire someone on and now they want to bring the project management in-house, which is a solid thing to do.
I have this visual of a track runner, a track and field, and the baton. And here you are running and
Yep.
starting it
Yep.
and getting that momentum and then passing it on beautifully to the next person. And their hands out reaching, ready to go. And off they go with it, right? And then you get to slow down
Yep, exactly.
onto the next project.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the next project within the same organization. I've
Yeah.
been at companies where I'm in one sponsoring department, billing and collection, for example, and then I moved on to investments, and then I moved on to supporting their agency, the agents in the field. And even within an organization, it's wonderful to have that broad impact and be seen as someone that's competent and credible and capable of taking on a lot of things.
Yeah. Professionally, what's next for you? I hear retirement, but I hear it way out here because you love what you do.
Yeah.
Are there any aspects of your professional life that you think, gosh, when I can take a pause, or I'd like to focus on this next layer for myself? Is there anything out there that's been a dream of yours that you haven't obtained yet?
I came close so far. My wildly important goal, Karen, is I want to leave the world better than I found it, and of course, have fun doing it. And as I think about the things that really appeal to me, I feel really drawn to projects that have a sustainability impact, water health, ocean health. I wouldn't turn down any opportunities in the wine industry. Some fun things like that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really focused on now, in terms of, because we all have a choice. Remember, I said that we can choose our client just like they can choose us. It's something that I'm searching for. I keep track of what is going on in that industry. I don't know if you've heard of the ocean cleanup. It's not something that I can consider because they're a Norwegian organization and we don't do business internationally, but it was started by an 18-year-old student who had a passion to clean up the great garbage patches of the ocean. And he got funding, and now they're on their third iteration of a system to do that. So that's what I mean by sustainability type of projects, because I want to leave the world a better place. I'd like to be able to find something that is more pointed at water. Not that anything that I've ever done in the 30 years I've been managing projects hasn't been important or hasn't had a significant impact, because we're helping organizations achieve their strategies.
And there's a calling, though.
Definitely a calling. Yeah. I'm certain I'm doing what I'm meant to do on this earth.
And we need it. We need that focus and that expertise in those areas that you've highlighted around sustainability, especially when it comes to water.
Yeah.
Interesting. How about outside of professional life? Is there anything hobby-wise, or you mentioned wine?
Yeah. Okay, that's a hobby. Let's call it a hobby.
Have you made it to our wineries here?
Oh, I'm starting to, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a great time of year to do it too.
I know. It's lovely. We'll be going to the Carolyn Commons has a art and wine festival this weekend, and I really enjoy that.
So good.
I do love walking in the desert. I won't say I hike. I do not like taking on, 1,000 feet of elevation and 400 feet. Nothing like that.
I do.
But I find the desert immensely peaceful and calming and motivating. I love to scuba dive. I'd like to take that back up.
I don't know if I knew that. I was certified diver in the early 90s, and probably till 96, just, as again, a hobby with my then husband. And I really would like to get recertified and get back in the water and try that again. That's fascinating. How recent has it been since you've been diving?
A long time. I had a great dive partner, and we managed to get down to the Caribbean about once a year, mostly because I had young kids at the time and I wasn't especially equipped to take it. But she retired earlier than I did by about 10 years. And she just is achieving her dream, I'm really sure, because she wanted to travel the world and she was very interested in volunteering and giving back. And she would contact me and say, hey, I'm going to South Africa for 6 weeks. Do you want to come? And then I'm not coming back home. I'm going up to this place or that place. And I just really admired that, but I wasn't able to join her in that. So I haven't scuba dived really since we've been together.
There's some neat places to have the training again. I know I personally would need to go through training again. And I think
you do have to recertify after 2 years, and it's been way longer than 2 years.
But we only have have swimming pools or Saguaro Lake for, and a couple of other lakes, Lake Pleasant, that sort of thing for the checkout dive. I got to do my checkout dive in Kauai, which was
Yes.
amazing. Yes, we did all of our pool work here, and it was our honeymoon actually. And we went to Kauai and we did our checkout dive and had several great dives after that in Mexico and California coast. And
I think that's the best recommendation I would have for someone taking up scuba diving is do your pro work locally.
yeah,
And then go to someplace like Kauai where you can actually get in warm water, see what's coming, have great visibility.
yeah.
I've been with some dives where the dive master got their certification off the coast of, say, Portugal or England,
Oh.
right? And I'm like, ooh, I won't even go into Lake Michigan and go diving. It's dark, it's cold.
Right.
So,
Oh my gosh. So a passion to get back in the water and go,
yeah,
go dive.
I think
deep.
that water is kind of a theme for me.
It is me too, especially here in this desert.
Yeah, that's another, aha that I got, not an unpleasant one, but I've always grown up with my dad who we had like a local well on our property, and water conservation was important even back then, right? It's like when you brush your teeth, turn off the water.
Yep.
So I grew up that way. And then moving here, it just how much of a feature it is in the conversation and the dialogue that goes on at the government level and the communities here. It's interesting to see, and I'm glad I had developed those habits previously.
Same
Feeling
with
like I
me.
fit right in.
Yep, I grew up in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area in the early 70s, and there was that conversation all the time around conservation. Now I've got a 16-year-old who doesn't realize that water is not endless. So
Right.
I'm having to remind him, shut off the water. Here's how many minutes you have for your shower. It's
Yeah.
not an endless source. For folks who are interested in getting to know more about you and your company and want to know, if they would be a great fit with one of you as consultants, what's the best place to get started? How does that begin to happen for people?
You can contact us on our website. It's berkshire-consulting.com. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn, and you can contact me or schedule time with me on calendly.com/Jan Schiller.
Jan Schiller. And so when we first got started talking today, you mentioned that you really took advantage of the LinkedIn as an opportunity to networking, get to know people. Are you still actively involved in LinkedIn and finding that that's still a great source of connection?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn came out with a new benefit. I logged in and viewed my profile one day, and on there was a little badge that said top project management contributor. I'm like, how did I get that?
Oh, that's impressive.
Yeah, I really, like I said, I like sharing my knowledge and experience in a way that'll help others. And you can find me on, there's a digital project management magazine dedicated to project management called PM World 360. I'm a contributor there. You can also find my articles associated with my profile on LinkedIn. And I do like to, when I comment, sometimes there's another gentleman named Andy Kaufman that I met at that same PMO
We've
conference.
had Andy on with Joe. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he's a delightful person, and I like he asks these great, insightful questions, and it gives everyone the opportunity through their comments to say, yeah, and this is what it means to me, or this is how I go about doing that. So he's a great conversation starter on those topics that are probably of great interest to all project managers. I highly recommend following him.
Okay, good. And of course, we'll follow you. So on LinkedIn, Jan Schiller and Berkshire, I keep saying
That's okay. We got our name because one of the founding partners for our very first client on the East Coast was driving from Wisconsin to the East Coast through the Berkshire Mountains. So that's how we got our name. We like it because it doesn't describe what we do. We can pivot internally if we need to without having to change our name.
Smart.
And we're not related at all to Berkshire Hathaway. It's the most common question we get.
I'm sure it is. Right. Are you an offshoot from that? So LinkedIn, Jan Schiller, SCHILLER, and Berkshire-consulting.com.
Yes.
It's been so fun to get to know you better today.
Thank you, Karen. It's been wonderful. And I enjoy the opportunity to share a little bit about what we do.
Well, hopefully you'll
on
be
a wonderful
back
business
again.
RadioX. It's a great fit.
Woohoo. And for sure. We think so. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean project management. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.